What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the JR Wisdom channel. And today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking about a very controversial topic. So if you're easily offended, then I advise you to unclick off of this video and go look at another video. I've been meaning to do this video for a while. I actually started writing a book about it, but I just never got, I got everything done up. I'm like halfway through, but I just got sidetracked from writing it. But what prompted me to really just do this video today was if you go through one of the other videos I posted up, someone asked me in the comments, who do I say Jesus is? And so I said something basically which I don't think was a lie. I said Jesus was a man, a messenger, and a prophet. And I was promptly called the Antichrist. So I'm like, wow, I really got called the Antichrist for saying that he was a man, messenger, and prophet. Is it really that serious? So, like I said, this isn't to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just gonna give you the video on based upon my studies and what I know of Jesus, and I'm getting these from numerous sources, not just the Bible, other sources as well on the life of Jesus, and like I said, it might be a little controversial. It might affect you and hurt you and say that you're lying and you're not telling the truth and da 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 da. That's fine. Once again, I already warned you. So basically, I'm not going to quote any. I'm not really going to be quoting verses in this because that's going to take entirely too long throughout this video. I just want to give a quick synopsis. This isn't a Sunday school, so to speak. So I'm just gonna be touching on obviously, as you know, a lot of what we know about Jesus was covered in the four Gospels: Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. As a lot of people know, churchgoers and things of that nature, which talks about Jesus' life, and basically, obviously, what we know, the scene is set. There hasn't been a really a prophet since major prophet since Solomon, so to speak, or messenger since Solomon. And then you had, the exile in Babylon, in Persia, and things of that nature with the prophecies of Daniel and things of that nature. And so you have Zachariah, and you had the son of Zachariah, who's John at this time. And we have at this time also set is the Roman occupation of, Jerusalem and the surrounding area. So you have a Palestinian woman named Mary, who's a virgin at the time, who is approached for marriage by her husband Joseph, who was supposed to be a descendant of King David. Also, Mary, as you know, was a relative or cousin, however you want to be specific with it, of Elizabeth, who was the wife of Zachariah. So we just fast forward. Mary is approached by a man who's actually an angel, but he's in the form of a man who gives her glad tidings of a son, and this son is from God. And she's basically afraid at first, saying, she hasn't been touched by a man. How is she gonna have a child? Gabriel basically tells her that it's easy for God, and all he has to do is say be, and it will. So basically, the spirit of God was blown into her womb, so to speak, or God blew into her womb, and she was impregnated without the intervention of a male or semen or sperm or anything like that. Similar to Adam. Adam was created without a mother or father, so Jesus is like the second Adam, so to speak. So on to that. Obviously, King Herod, through prophecy or things that were told to him, is that there will be a man or a child that's going to be born that's going to overthrow him. So he sets about the same thing as we've heard in the past, same thing that happened in Egypt with the Pharaoh, to kill all these boys to prevent this prophecy from happening. So Joseph obviously becomes aware of this, and the angel Gabriel comes to him in a dream and reassures him that, Mary is pregnant with, a child, so to speak. And this is a holy child, a miracle from God. So, basically, Mary secludes herself, uh, with her cousin Elizabeth and Zachariah, and she partitions herself away from everyone else to hide this pregnancy. And she prays, spends her time in the temple praying, things of that nature, until the time of, I guess it's time to give birth. And uh, there's another narration that when she became pregnant, she was venturing off doing something, and then the pains of labor came upon her, and the pains were so strong that she wished that she would have died. But the angel Gabriel came to her at that point, and she told her to shake a date palm tree, and the dates fell from the palm tree, and a river was nearby, and she drank from that river, or that stream of water. And after she had the baby, she took the baby back, and she couldn't speak. Similar to Zachariah when he couldn't speak. She couldn't speak. So at Jesus's birth, when she was after Jesus was born, she was carrying Jesus. She couldn't speak when they questioned her, being that she either fornicated or committed adultery, because she was a virgin, or she was chaste at that time. She pointed to Jesus the baby, and he spoke and testified and defended his mother, saying that he was indeed a prophet and a messenger of God. As a baby, he's speaking to the Jews, and that peace will be upon him to the day he's born, and the day that he dies, he's going to preach in the name of God, so to speak. That's one narration. Other narration, which traditionally heard, is that she's pregnant, her and Joseph, because of a census that's done. Joseph is to go back to his hometown, which is um oh, I was up here from Nazareth, from Nazareth to Bethlehem, which is approximately 70 miles. You know, which they're traveling, which is another thing. They're traveling by donkey or mule, and this is supposed to be the winter time, going about during this time, which is would be difficult for a pregnant woman. So obviously, they end up not finding a place to stay, so they end up staying in a barn of such, with a manger, and Jesus is born there. Word gets back to them that King Herod is sending people looking for this baby, because the signs have come about, and he's been told that the baby has been born. So, with that being said, they flee to Egypt at that point. Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, as a baby, they flee to Egypt for an undescribed amount of time. We really don't hear from them. But basically, we're told that, even though this isn't in the Bible, we're told that Jesus was born on December 25th, which basically, you got shepherds having their flocks out. It's very cold in Israel during that time. Shepherds having their flocks out during that time is very unlikely. So that's one thing to think about. Another thing is these censuses that normally are conducted wouldn't happen in the winter time, because that would make it more difficult for travelers, and also people visiting this holy area, these holy cities. So it'd make it a lot more difficult. December 25th is basically a pagan holiday, set by the Romans. So anyway, fast forward, and we don't hear from Jesus, until he's probably an adolescent, sometime around there. Excuse me. And basically, he goes missing, and Mary's looking for him, and he's in a temple teaching other teachers, about the gospel and things of that nature. And then from there, we really don't hear from him. We fast forward to when he's about the age of 30, and the setting is pretty much at the River Jordan, where John is baptizing people, and Jesus comes up, and John, requests that Jesus baptize him, but Jesus tells him to baptize him instead, And you hear a voice from heaven, God saying, my son who I'm well pleased, things of that nature. So this is kind of like the catalyst that brings about Jesus' ministry. But before that, just with a lot of these prophets, they go to fast, so to speak. So Jesus withdraws himself to the Judean desert for about 40 days and 40 nights, where he's tempted by Satan, by the devil, so to speak. And another thing with that is, if you are truly God, if Jesus, which a lot of people would like to believe Jesus is God, fundamentally, if you're a Christian, you have to believe that Jesus is God. That if you are truly God, how can you be tempted by your own creation? That's one thing that I want to bring up about that. So anyway, he goes through 40 days and 40 nights. He's made all these offers and propositions by Satan, which he rejects, which he passed the test. And then he continues he begins to his ministry, where he gathers, appoints, and he recruits 12 disciples. And his ministry normally occurs around Jerusalem area and Galilee, that area right there. His basic message when Jesus was here, he was to speak of peace, love, and forgiveness. Jesus was the embodiment of God's love, as opposed to what we see in the Old Testament is nothing but a wrathful God. But in the New Testament, we see the peaceful, he's the embodiment of God's love, so to speak. And he's like one of the greatest, most powerful messengers of God, because he brought about this message instead of the fire and brimstone of the old ages of the Torah and the Old Testament. Like I said, Jesus, what people need to keep in mind, Jesus was a modest man. He didn't have any personal belongings. Whatever he walked around and he preached with, it was the clothes he had on his back. He didn't walk around in luxurious items and things of that nature. And he didn't ask for much, just for, whatever meal he could use. Jesus was a man in all aspects. Jesus got sick like we did. Jesus, he got hungry. He got thirsty. He had to use the bathroom just like us. As a man, he probably woke up with morning wood just like us also. It wasn't like this. That he was a man. The Bible says that Jesus was a man. He wasn't a God man. He wasn't a man God. Because once you become either, you cease to become the other. Once you become a man, you cease to become God. Once you become God, you cease to become a man. And this is where the whole greco-roman thing comes in, which I'll get to later on this. But back to what I was saying, Jesus spoke. He was discriminating against wealth and people who showed their wealth off and who were in competition with things of this world. And he preached the word of God, over making money, saying basically things like it was easier for a poor man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it was for a rich man. And real success would be in the afterlife. Jesus performed miracles. Like when what's interesting about Jesus performing these miracles was that the Jews, Jews, were known healers. They were known to be excellent, incredible doctors and healers. So what would make this miraculous is someone who would perform these miracles. Just like during the time of Moses, the people of the Pharaoh, they were mighty magicians and architects and things of that nature like that during that time. So Moses, his miracles had to outdo those as well. So Jesus' miracles were mostly healing miracles. As we saw, he healed the blind, the sick, the lame, the leper. He even took it a step further and raised the dead, brought the dead back to life in the case of Lazarus, as we know. But all of these miracles were performed by the permission of God, not Jesus himself. It was God that was actually performing these miracles, just like all the other prophets, which is what we need to remember. So like I said, they were great healers. He even, helped people walk again, made people walk again. He blatantly preached against the money making business, the coins, the Pharisees making money and in competition with each other with who was the best preacher. Yeah, who was the best preacher, making money off of people. He was disrupting the economy of the temple, which the Pharisees and the higher ups and the Jews in higher positions didn't like. So because he was stopping their cash flow and preaching this radical doctrine, so to speak, that's why the conspiracy was developed to kill him. And the Pharisees needed to end this. That's why they devised the plot, you know. And with that plot, that's where we see Judas Iscariot come in, and which was one of Jesus' disciples, if you didn't know. And Judas Iscariot, he had a zealot ideology. And he felt that Jesus being the Messiah, the promised one, his job was to rid Jerusalem and the area of Roman occupation. And the more he stayed with Jesus, he seen that that wasn't what Jesus was trying to do. He was trying to get the Jews back on the right track from what they were doing, their practices. So Judas felt some type of way. So basically, he was propositioned. He ended up in the hands of the Pharisees, and he was propositioned by the Pharisees, so to speak. When he asked them, how much would you give me to hand him over? The Pharisees, they told him 30 pieces of silver. And he was like, all right, cool. So around this time, we see the Last Supper coming on. And during the Last Supper, the conversation of, this is my flesh, this is my blood. And supposedly this new covenant was developed at that point. And basically he told, Judas to depart from him. You're going to be the one that's going to betray me. So he departed from the table, and sometime after that, he's basically telling them, my death is at hand, my death is imminent. So sometime after that, he went with the disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane, and at that garden, he was with the disciples while they slept, and he went to pray. And the fact of people who believe that Jesus is God, when Jesus prayed, he prayed to God. He didn't pray to himself. When he laid down, he laid prostrate, face first, as the way the old Jews, King David, all these prophets who came before used to pray face down, asking God to pass the cup from him. Jesus fell into depression at this point, as it says in the Bible. He fell into despair. He was so shook, traumatized about what was to happen. He asked God several times throughout that night, and he kept going back to the disciples, checking to see if they were awake or not. So, and that's where he came in and said that, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, things of that nature. And, he basically said that he prophesied in God's name, and he brought glory to God's name on this earth, and his mission was done. So he asked for God to remove this from him, and he was afraid. God, if you were truly God, why would you be talking to yourself, saying these things? And that's something we need to remember, But because of what Judas had did, he rallied up a small detachment of the Romans, and he was captured and brought back before the Pharisees, so to speak. And at that time, the prefect was Pontius Pilate, and this was during the time of Passover. During the time of Passover, he was interviewed by the Pharisees, and because Passover was there, they couldn't, Jews, the Sabbath day, you couldn't do things on the Sabbath day. So that Friday was approaching, and if you know anything about the old Sabbath day started on Friday evening on into Saturday. So Pontius Pilate questioned him. He interviewed Jesus, saying, "They say you're the King of Jews," and every question Jesus either didn't answer or replied in the negative. When Pontius Pilate asked him questions like, "Are you the King of the Jews?" He said, "Is that what they told you?" And he basically said, "My kingdom is not of this earth." So he said, "Are you a king?" And he never really said that. He just says, "My kingdom is not of this earth." If this were truly his world, he would never got handed over, and his servants would have fought for him, and things of that nature. So he denied that. He denied all the charges And then he said he's basically there to speak the truth, and his followers are there to hear the truth. And then Pontius Pilate asked him, what truth? You know, and things of that nature. So he never really responded. He basically saying that you will see him on the right hand on a cloud with God when, on that day to come. So basically, Pilate, he found him guilty of no wrongdoing, and he just opted just to flog him instead. You know, and Pilate, because he was the prefect and governor of that time, he had as far as any discipline or anything like that, he was the one to oversee that. So this flogging wasn't good enough for the Jews. They wanted him crucified because of the blasphemous allegations of the Son of God, so to speak. So out of fear with the pressure mounting, but the Jews saying that they want this done, and a possible uprising and the possible repercussions from Caesar, not keeping the people calm and, basically ruling over these people and keeping them, set. He basically just went ahead and, fell into it and gave him up for crucifixion. At that point, as you know, Jesus, where the term bear your own cross, Jesus took his own cross up to the hill of Golgotha, or Golgotha, however you want to pronounce it. And he was crucified with two other criminals, so to speak. And he was crucified and he died in the same day. Another thing about crucifixion is designed to torment you, for you to suffer. It's an agonizing death that usually takes days to happen. But Jesus died in the same day, and he committed his spirit to God and basically died. And, he asked for, the something to drink. So they gave him like something that was fermented. It was either vinegar or sour wine. Both are fermented. Like I said, this all comes down to translation and things of that nature. So as he told his disciples, he would return in 3 days. So if you think about, Jesus died on a Good Friday, and he came back on Easter Sunday, which is another pagan holiday. Let's say if he died Friday evening, which is still the Sabbath day, so to speak. Well, let's say he died midday Friday. You got Friday, that's Saturday, that's 1 day. Sunday, that's 2 days. So he returned back on Sunday. So that doesn't make any sense as far as 3 days goes. So when he came back, he remained on earth for 40 days until his ascension back into heaven, in which he promised that he would return and fulfill the prophecy of being the Messiah. There are other things said that Jesus, before his likeness was placed upon that of another man, or there was another man who took his spot, because no one, as far as the Pharisees goes, knew what Jesus looked like. So it could have been anyone that took his place as far as being crucified. So he was raised to heaven. God raised him personally to heaven before he could be crucified. Also, at the point of with Pontius Pilate, it's customary during Jewish custom to release a prisoner. So when Pontius Pilate asked the people said, "Give us Barabbas." Okay, Barabbas' first name was Jesus as well, which Barabbas in Aramaic translates to Son of the Father. Jesus was the Messiah, or Jesus Christ, which is Christos in Greek, means Messiah, which means anointed. And as far as the Son of God goes, there's several places in the Bible David is referred to the Son of God. During the time of Pharaoh, God refers to David is also referred to as his firstborn, and the people of Israel are referred to as God's firstborn. So this technical Son of God thing is questionable. So I don't want to. I know I've been talking for a while. I want to get into the Antichrist and things that are coming with that, because that's what I was called as far as my beliefs. But that's another video for you guys. The point I'm trying to get across is there's a term called anthropomorphism, which means to assign man-like qualities to a god. The Pauline doctrine. Paul was a Roman citizen. Basically, the Romans and Greeks worshipped. They were a polytheistic society. They worshipped multiple gods. So that's it would be more palatable for Paul as a Roman to turn Jesus into a God man or a man God, which is what the Romans and Greeks worshipped, are these guys that came to earth as men, and things of that nature. So it would be more palatable for him to incorporate that. So I just want to get across a lot of the things, a lot of the beliefs, a lot of this innovation that has come about is because of Greco-Roman society, even down to our days: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. All of these are named after Greek gods and pagan holidays. Same thing with our government. Our government is constructed after Greco-Roman society. A lot astrology that we follow up. A lot of these frats and sororities, it's all Greco-Roman, so to speak. So I've been talking long enough. I just wanted to get this video out. I'm surprised I talked for 26 minutes. Feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I know if y'all watch the whole thing, y'all probably gonna say, "Hey, you're full of it." Da 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 da. Feel free to comment. I'll respond if I feel like it. But like, share, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Facebook. Check out my Amazon profile. I got a book coming out about the same topic soon, hopefully within the next month or so. And just remember that anything lost can be found again except for time wasted. Peace.